So, welcome to this webinar on how to enhance your advanced steel model with rendering. Most of you already know me. I'm Alec Giles, and I'm a structures consultant at Graitec, and I'm also an Autodesk Expert Elite. I was originally trained as a mechanical design engineer around 30 years ago, and I was a member of the Institution of Engineering Designers until around 2010. I spent about 10 years designing machinery, primarily for the steel and aluminium industries. But then I moved sideways to become the CAD manager and training and supporting around 200 users in the company I worked at of AutoCAD, AutoCAD Mechanical, Inventor, and Solid Edge. I moved to Graitec in February 2010, so I've been here nearly 11 years, coming up soon. Since then, I've focused 100% entirely on advanced steel. I've done nothing except advanced steel, doing support, training, sales demos, consultancy, and so on. So overall, I have around 20 years experience doing support, training, and consultancy. Why should you use Graitec as your partner in your business? Well, we believe Graitec are unique in being able to offer services and products across the entire life cycle of your company's products. We'd like to split those into 4 areas. First, we have Graitec Create, where you use Autodesk products such as Inventor and Advanced Steel to create and design your products, and those are all enhanced with extra tools that we call Power Pack from Graitec, extra bells and whistles to go with them. Once you've got your basic design, you need to test it and simulate it to make sure it's going to work. So that comes under Graitec Simulate, where you can use either the Autodesk tools or Graitec's own state-of-the-art market-leading tools for simulation of your product to prove that it's going to really work. Once you've got the finished design, you need to make it. So Graitec Fabricate, we offer tools to control all of the files and data that control your workshop, from managing the schedules for your welders and your staff to sending the right NC file to the right machine to cut your pieces of metal. So all that fabrication data, managing the workshop day to day, is under Graitec Fabricate. And finally, all those jobs create huge amounts of data, hundreds and hundreds of files, and all that needs to be controlled. So we have Graitec Manage, which will manage all of your work in progress data, protecting your intellectual property, making sure everyone's using up-to-date files and so on, all the way up to when you pass those outside your company into an external data environment. If you've missed any previous webinars, like this one, all webinars are recorded and they are listed on the Graitec Content Center. So if you follow that link at the top there, then you'll be able to access the Advanced Steel webinars, and you'll have the history there. There's over 50 there now, and this one will be added in due course to that list as well. We also offer a lot more than just the webinars. So I've just told you about the Content Center, but there's lots more tools available for Advanced Steel. Have you looked at our blogs recently? We try to regularly publish new blogs these are short, bite-sized bits of information with hints and tips or ideas of how to get more out of Advanced Steel, how to set it up different ways, how to achieve different things. There's currently over 100 blogs on our blog site. So go to Graitec.co.uk and look for the blogs, then Advanced Steel. If you're a Graitec UK customer, you were invited to the Advanced Steel User Day. Did you miss it? If you did, then you can catch up. What about our BIM Up conferences that we did in last year and this year, in June this year? Those are also available. Everything presented at those conferences is available on the Graitec Advantage website. If you're a Graitec customer, you should have an account to Graitec Advantage. You do have to have a login account. Go to graitec.com and click the Advantage link at the top right and look for the videos. There are over 80 videos for the BIM Up conferences and several for the User Day. There's at least 30 different videos all about Advanced Steel among all of those for all sorts of other subjects. And finally, if you're a customer who is fully supported by the UK, then you'll also have access to the Graitec Advanced Steel Power Pack. If you're in another country, check with your local Graitec office what you're entitled to. But the Power Pack is a whole suite of tools adding extra functionality beyond what's in the box with Advanced Steel. Some very powerful and useful macros and joints and extra data, extra suppliers and things for Advanced Steel. So on to today's webinar then. What are we all about? Well, when you're making your designs, it's often nice to have a better quality image of your model rather than just a screenshot that we have while we're working. Those are okay for working in, but it'd be nice to have a good quality image for the cover of a portfolio, to go in the top of a quote, just to go on your website as a history of your projects, for all sorts of different reasons, to impress the customer or whatever. So how do you get nicer images? There are lots of programs available that can do amazing rendering for you if you have enough time and skill. But we need to get the best possible output for the minimum possible input of time and skill, because this is not our main task. This is a nice to have beyond our main task of designing and building. So how do we get it the maximum return? What's the easiest workflow we can use to get that best possible result? You might have seen other presentations similar to this one on the subject from other people. I've seen several others and they're all brilliant. Nothing wrong with any of them, but I'm going to cover it in a slightly different angle. I'm going to offer a slightly different workflow that I think keeps it much simpler and more uniform, but also gives you several different options of how to go things. So I'll be covering more avenues of results as well. So I believe, or I would say, there are 4 different levels of quality you can get on the images with very little effort, and these are using 3 different PC applications. And I'm going to show you how to do all 3 of them. So first of all, you start off with your screenshot. That's what you're working in all the time in Advanced Steel. Well, that's not awful, as long as you set up your prototype correctly. There's a separate webinar on how to set up your modeling prototype, because the model template provided with Advanced Steel is terrible. But set up a nice template and you can get okay quality. But better than that, you can actually do full rendering in AutoCAD if you want to. So that's much nicer, higher quality. But beyond just what AutoCAD can do, you can also use a tool called Fusion, which is another Autodesk tool, and that will give you a different quality and it's a little bit easier. Or finally, you can use something called Twinmotion, and that's gives you lots of toys to play with and really high quality output. So we're going to go through how each of these work. First of all, getting the best working quality all along. Even when you're working, you can make your life easier and nicer. You can work on a nice screen image. No point in staring into a gloomy murk with dark grey or dark coloured objects on a black background and you can't see what you're doing, or you're working in wireframe. We're not in the 80s anymore. We can move on from that. So adjust your model template. Do yourself a favour. Don't use the one built into Advanced Steel. Copy that. Always start with that one. Copy it and improve it. There's a separate webinar on that Content Center all about how to improve your model template. And that will make a big difference. Well, so a couple of rules to remember when you are doing your own template is that you must always start with the original one provided with Advanced Steel and copy that and work on that to adjust it so it has all the right things set up in there. And not to get too carried away, there are correct visual style settings to use in order to get the best performance and so on. So the webinar on the Content Center or a blog I've also done on the blog pages of how to do your model template. This outlines all the rules and all the settings you can play with on your model template. And like I said, you saw the screenshot, you can get much nicer quality. Even while you're working, you can still have wood grain texture on your timber beams. You can still have glass looking like glass. You put a concrete texture on your concrete objects. It just makes it stand out and more pleasing when you're working. And also, it's an acceptable screenshot if you don't want to do anything else. So there's the horrible template provided with Advanced Steel. It's not brilliant. It doesn't give the best performance because it's not using the up-to-date rules for the visual styles. And it's not very nice to look at. But do some changes to the visual style settings. You'll improve the performance. You can change the color scheme. I've got the beams in gray. I've got some lighter colors. You can change the background colors. I don't like the washed out, horrible dull blue, I like a nice sunny day instead of a rainy afternoon. You can add materials such as concrete and wood, and you can make the glass transparent. So that looks, to me, that looks a lot better and a lot more pleasing and satisfying than this one on the top left. But beyond that, that's what you can do all the time, no extra cost. Just spend yourself half an hour when you get a chance to do that. But on a particular project, you can do better quality if you actually use the rendering in AutoCAD. It's a big step up from what you're working with every day. Of course, Advanced Steel is built on top of AutoCAD. So you all already have AutoCAD, and you all already therefore have a rendering tool capable of photorealistic rendering if you have enough time and skill. It is a very powerful rendering tool. It's the same tool that's built into other software like 3D Studio, which is used on the film industry for movies. But I'm nowhere near good enough to get quality like that. And unless you guys are a lot more artistic than me or have more time on your hands, we're not going to be able to get that sort of quality of output. But we can get nice renders with very little effort. And there are some basic steps to repeat for every project here. First of all, you finish your actual design model. Lovely, you get that sorted out. But when that's finished, you then bring that model into a special template you've made just for rendering. And that's already been set up for you. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, you hit the magic button to create the rendering in that template, and you'll get the better quality. So that has nicer quality glass. It's got proper chrome for the railings and so on. It's got reflections on the steel work, whatever. So talking about that in a bit more detail, this render template. This is actually key to all the workflows I'm showing you today. They get this render template. So I recommend that in AutoCAD, you copy your main modeling template and make a special copy for rendering. If you look on the render ribbon inside Advanced Steel, there's one of the ribbon tabs is called Render. On there is a tool called the Materials Browser, and you can open that. It's got a library of materials that comes with AutoCAD. So everything from concrete, glass, different textiles, carpet, different types of paint, different types of wood, you name it, is in there. You can experiment with those to find ones you like. So you get a slab of concrete and you try the different concrete textures till you find one you like. I actually find a lot of them don't work very well. A lot of them just give me a blank color, which is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a nice texture. But once I find one, there will be ones that do work lovely, and you've got this lovely texture on there. You can keep that one and get rid of the others. And say, right, that's the one I like. I'll have aggregate exposed, or I'll have light precast, or whatever for the concrete. Choose the ones you like and experiment. Spend a bit of time doing that, because you only need to do it once. So you can afford to spend the time on that one occasion to do that. Once you've found the right textures or materials you like, you can use the material attach command to assign those materials to layers. So you don't have to assign every piece of concrete and go around assigning the concrete texture to it. All you need to do is use that material attach command, and you say the layer for concrete slabs, I'll use this texture. The layer for concrete walls, I'll use that texture. The layer for glass, I'll use that. The layer for railings, I'll use that, and so on, assigning your favorite texture to each layer according to the object type. Then you need lighting. If you just use nothing, don't do anything with the lighting, and just use what they consider standard lighting, I don't feel that gives a marvelous result. So I think you need a lot more light. And lighting is one of those things that makes a vast difference to the quality of your output. And if you've got a lot of skill, then you can spend a lot of time tweaking the lighting, and it will make you look much more realistic or less realistic. But like I say, we're trying to keep this very low skill. So I would just use this tool called a point light, which is on the render ribbon again, lights, create lights, point, put it in near the global origin. Your model should always be near 0, 0. So put this in near 0, 0, not at 0, 0. So you can see here on my screen, oops, you can see here, there's the first light. So there's the global origin. Here, this symbol here is the light source. So it's just, like say, a meter to the minus X and a meter in minus Y and a couple of meters up. Put one in there, and then make an array. Using the AutoCAD array command, you can make a 3D array. So I've put 4 or 5 in each direction, 2 or 3 up, say a few meters apart each one. no model in the file, just the light sources, and you've assigned the textures. You don't have any model in that file at this point. Save that as your template from the rendering template. That is your empty file ready to use for rendering in future. Then that's a one-off job. You create that template and you're going to use that template in all 3 workflows I'm talking about for the rest of this webinar. So spend half an hour, even, however long it takes, a couple of hours. It's worth spending time on that template because that will save you time later on. Once you've got that template, the actual process to get a decent quality image from your AutoCAD, start with your finished structural model, advanced steel model. Open your render template and use the insert command to insert your model into that template at 0, 0. Once it's inserted, explode it just once. And that will bring it back to being all the individual components in that template. So you can edit things as you wish, but you're not interested in doing too much to it. It's just the individual components, so you can change the materials. Your structures will vary in size. Sometimes you're just doing one flight of stairs, so you need like 2 or 3 meters by 2 or 3 meters. Other times you're doing a great big warehouse, so it's 50 meters by 30 meters. So you're going to edit the light array. So just select one of those light symbols, and in the ribbon you'll be able to edit the array, change the number of rows, number of columns, number of levels, change the spacing until your symbols cover the whole model that you need with what looks like a reasonable spacing. I have found I can put a lot of light sources in. I did some big models for the competition. You were looking at the images at the start. I did a lot of models, and some of those are really quite big, and I put a lot of light sources in, but it didn't seem to affect performance too much. So you can get quite big. Don't get too carried away. You don't want every meter, hundreds and hundreds of them. But I did like maybe 25 by 16 at 4 meter intervals or something, and that would cover a big area. So you want to cover your whole model with lots of light. Now, if you've got everything on the right layers, your materials should be inherited automatically. So if you said all the railings are on the railing layer, as they should be, then when you put them into your model, when you said railing layer is chrome, they'll come up as chrome without you having to do anything. But maybe on this job, it's a safety rail, and it's not chrome. It's got to be bright yellow because it's for an industrial plant that's painted yellow or something like that. So if you need to, you can adjust the materials, or you have 1 or 2 odd bits that you want to just change to something else. You can click the render button at the top, and it will do the rendering in the viewport, as it calls it, and that will render it straight on your screen directly, and you can just check, okay, there's a lot of shadow there, I might try and put in extra light, or, oh, that green for the beam doesn't work very well, I think I'll try a different color, let's try blue or silver or something. So you can quickly change without spending ages waiting for the rendering to finish. Just go render. As soon as you see anything you're not happy with, you can hit escape and change something. It'll probably render the whole screen in about a minute. If you waited for it, it will get to full quality in a minute or so. Once you're happy though, and you've said, yeah, I'm happy with those quality of the render and the settings I've got, you then change the setting from render in viewport. You say render in window. And then you click the render button, and it'll open another window and create all the rendering in there. It'll do 2 or 3 passes, so it'll come through looking rough, then it'll get finer and finer. And that'll take probably 2 or 3 minutes, maybe, the size of your model, of course, to get the full quality and the finished rendering as good as it's going to get. You can choose this resolution and so on for that window. Once it's finished, you can then hit the save button in that window to save it to disk as a JPEG or a PNG or whatever. So let's have a look at me doing all that. That's enough waffling. Let's see it in action. Hang on, you're not getting the sound there. Let me try that again. Why won't we get any sound there? Technology. Okay, no sound, I'll have to talk. So, I've got a model template here for my original model. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to throw together a few quick members. Just one or two examples of things. Just a few beams, a few joints, a bit of concrete, a bit of glass, whatever, a bit of grating. So there's a few things I can play with. Now I'll go to the render ribbon. This is setting up my render template. So I go to the render ribbon. I've got the material browser tool there. And here we go. You can see the library here of tools. So expand this list and you've got all the different categories here, look. So let's say I look at something in here. Metal, different types of metal finishes, look, brass and chrome and so on. So maybe I like the sound of that one. Let's see what that looks like for something matte black. Probably not what I wanted. Try some different colors. What about the concrete? Try some different concrete textures. There you go, it looks like concrete blocks. So that one works okay. I might like that one or I might not like that one. We can just drag it from the browser onto the part and you get the different texture come up. You can see if it's a texture you like. Try different paint colors. I find the metallic paint works quite well. Some of them sound a bit rough, but actually they're not so bad when you see them rendered up. That one comes out better than you think when it's rendered up. So I'll find some that I like. I'm looking for something like grating, so I can search at the top there and what's the grating look like there? Because I don't want a slab like Advanced Steel Models. I want it to look like a mesh, so that didn't look too bad. And then we've got glass. I'm going to try some different glass textures. Right, now we've done the material attach command, so this brings up a list of all the layers on the right and the materials on the left. So you just drag the material from the left to the layer. So now everything on the beams layer will be that glazed fire brick color. And I can choose other colors I like here. Let's try changing some concrete. Am I going to do that? So the concrete is going to be that formwork texture and so on. You can find the ones you like and assign them as you wish. So plates, I'm going to have gold. I did find, and it's worth mentioning, that if you make everything just metallic grey or mild, like a mild steel grey, it doesn't look very good because you can't tell the difference between the plates and the bolts and the steelwork. So it does help to have a bit of artistic license. I'm leaving the plates bright yellow because it makes them stand out. So I hit the render button at the top there and I'm happy enough with those textures. I'm going to purge out all the stuff I didn't use. But you don't want to purge the layers and you don't want to purge the materials. So I'm unticking those to make sure they stay because that's the whole point of this file. And then I'm going to get rid of all that temporary modeling stuff that I've done in this file. There you go. And I'm going to put in a light source. So it says turn off the default lighting. And I'm going to put this in near the 0, 0, but not at 0, 0. There you go, there's the first light source. Then I'm going to use the AutoCAD 3D array. Pick that light source and put in a pattern of those to cover an area just for starters. So a few in each direction, a couple of levels, put in some spacing, a few meters apart. There you go, there's some lights in there. That's enough to get me started. Cover a small model, wouldn't it? So let's save that. So we need to do a save as. It's going to be a template, so it's DWT, drawing template, and you give it the right name. Whatever you want to call it. So that's making the render template. That's an important process that you're going to use a lot. But now I'm going to actually do a model. So I've started a new file from the rendering template. Looks exactly as I left it. And I'm going to use the insert. I prefer the classic insert command. The new insert they made in 2020 doesn't work very well. well. I don't like it. So I'm using classic insert, but I'm going to go and find my model that I want to render up. So there's a model ready to use. I'm going to put it at 0, 0, 0, so I'm not going to specify on screen. And I need this exploded, so rather than do it explode in a minute, I've ticked the box there to say explode it, say OK. Now it'll take a few moments to import that. So there you go, there's my model. Now it's inside my rendering template, ready to think about rendering. You might want to clean some things up in here. For example, I don't need any cameras for the rendering, so get rid of all of them. Get rid of the grids, they're not going to show up in the rendering. Right. I need to be able to see whether my light sources are covering the whole model. You can see they're not quite covering the whole model at the moment. So I'm going to click on the pattern or any of the light sources, and I'm going to edit that pattern to put in different rows and column spacings and numbers. So now you can see it's going beyond the model, so it's got plenty of coverage there. What about the height? Yeah, it's not high enough yet. So I could make them, space them higher, or I could put in a third level. Can't remember what I did now. Put in a third level. So now we're going to have an abundance of light around our model. That should be good. So I'm reasonably happy with that. I get a viewpoint that looks sensible. And I'm going to check my assignments now. I'm actually going to change some of these because this is not quite the same template. So I'm going to put a different color of the beams rather than the shiny. There you go, that's better. The shiny grey doesn't work that well, like I said, if everything's shiny grey. So now I'm going to use, it says render in viewport, and I'm going to click that render button, and you'll see it improves the quality. Here we go, clunk, clunk, clunk. And you can very quickly see, oh no, I'm not happy with that. I want to change the color, I want to change something. Change the beams, or there you go, I'm going to change something here. So I've realized the stairs, I didn't want them to be metallic, I want them to be a different color, so I'm going to drag a different color to the stairs layer. And then I'm going to, when it's caught up with itself, try that render again. But now I'm going to go for the window. So I've changed it to render in window, hit render, brings up this new window, and it starts generating the rendering, the final render. So you can see it takes a few moments. I've obviously clipped out some of the waiting time. But you can say at the bottom right it took a minute or so to do that rendering. And then at the top left you can click the, there you go, took a minute. You just click the save button, and that'll create the, save your PNG or whatever type of file to disk. I would recommend you save this rendered file for future use. And now also, to go into the next part of the workflows for the other options, we need to have an exploded model. We can't understand the advanced steel objects. So I'm going to use the PowerPack model to solids command, which will explode the whole model down to just 3D solids, rather than having to go through the long-winded exploding things yourself the hard way. You can do that, but whatever happens, we need a file for the next step of the process that's going to be just 3D solids in here. And I want this to be a block in AutoCAD, so it's an AutoCAD file. Make sure it's the same current version. Choose a sensible file name because it seems to default to a funny location. And make sure, absolutely critical, make sure you remember to say preserve layers. And then we can say OK. And that will create you a new DWG, not this one, doesn't change this file, but creates a new DWG, but that's just 3D solids with all the other properties that you've got. So we'll need those 3D solids on the next bit. So that's the AutoCAD rendering workflow. And you've got a better quality image, much like the right-hand side there. But I said there are other versions you could do that go higher quality or do different quality results. So the next option we had was Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is another program made by Autodesk. It's actually can do higher quality rendering than AutoCAD with a low skill level. They can both do photorealistic with enough skill. You probably don't own Fusion 360 already. If you want to get hold of it, it'll cost you around £365 a year is the list price. Not too horrendous. Depends what you're doing. Just for rendering, it's up to you. But Fusion 360 is actually a fully functioning 3D modeler with loads of nice tools in it. It's got everything from sheet metal, assemblies, weldments, simulation, iterative design, additive manufacture, subtractive manufacture, rendering, studio. You can do everything with it. It's an equivalent or similar to Inventor. It's been around for many years. This is a cloud-based version that's really going to upcoming tool. So you get an awful lot for £365 a year. But it's up to you if you're only using. We're only going to look at rendering now. If you've ever heard of an older tool called Showcase, which I've used in the past, that was like a real-time photorealistic renderer. Well, that no longer exists, but most of the Showcase functionality is now inside Fusion. So Fusion is the tool that's most similar. For most people with low skill levels, I think you'll get higher quality results here than you do with AutoCAD. And one of the perks is it's got very nice things called environments that you can use to put a flavor on your results and put backgrounds things in. So let's look at the workflow for this. Again, you start with your AutoCAD model or your advanced steel model and you put that into the render file as we've described just now. You have to explode that render file to 3D solids as I just explained. And the easiest way to do that, you can do it all manually by selecting objects and saying explode to ASYS and all the rest of it. But the easiest way to do that is using the PowerPack model to solids function, which does it in one move for you very, very nicely. Then you open Fusion, you open the exploded model. Fusion can open DWGs. And you switch to the render workspace inside Fusion. As soon as you switch to the render workspace, it will start to look something like this. It will inherit all the materials you had assigned in that render template in AutoCAD. And they won't look too bad, but there are actually higher quality materials available in Fusion. So you could substitute the AutoCAD stainless steel for the Fusion stainless steel, and it will give you better reflections or better finish. You can use scene settings to change these environments. Some environments control all the lighting. The lights don't come from AutoCAD into Fusion. The environment controls the lighting, and the environment controls the background around your image as well. So different environments will give different effects of lighting and background. And then you do the render command. So let's see if we can get this one to play properly and see if we've got some sound on this one. No. So here I am. I'm going to open up Fusion 360. Takes a few moments to open. Here we are. I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to open from my computer. It's a cloud-based one, so it wants to open from a cloud source, but I'm going to say open from my computer and go and find my exploded rendered file. And it's going to spend a few moments importing that. So I already did all the AutoCAD render file and exploded it. This is now importing that exploded file. There you go. So I click on open once it's finished importing it. There you go. So that doesn't look marvelous yet, but then I change at the top left to the render environment. And that's already starting to look nice, pretty good. Different sort of feel and texture and quality about these graphics. So that was quite nice on its own. But now we start looking at, well, it's a good idea to save it. The materials in the Fusion are called appearances. So you go to the appearance button and you have a library again of lots and lots of different appearances. So we can start looking through here for one we like. And you can drag it onto each individual component if you want to. Or you just want to replace all of a certain type. I'm still dragging these onto different parts of this water tank. Once you've got it in once, you want to drag it from the top half because make sure you're using the same material for each bit, not different versions of that material for each part. Okay, that's got the water tank. So now we choose a different wood grain, and what I want to do this time is I want to replace all of the one wood grain with another. So instead of dragging it onto the part, I drag it on top of the material at the top. So I chose a different wood grain and dragged it onto the existing wood grain at the top, and it will replace it, all those parts, with a new texture. And I'm going to do that, enhancing each of these textures, lighting up the concrete, doing different better quality for the paint and so on. You can store the ones you like in your favorites, so you can right click on it and say add to my appearances or add to favorites, so it becomes much easier to quickly find, here's my favorites, these are the ones I like using a lot, so I can drag that powder coat onto the plates and so on very quickly. So I assign my materials, I get a decent angle to look at, a decent viewpoint. Now we're going to the scene settings, and we've got environments here. So as I choose different environments, select one, right click, apply to scene, you see the shadows move, different time of day, got much more light, much brighter, overexposed, underexposed, warm lights, cool lights, and so on. So you find one that gives you a pleasing light quality. You'll see some of these have backgrounds on them, so if I choose something like that, it's changed the lighting, but it hasn't shown the background yet. But I'll go to settings and say I want to see the right environment background. And now my structure is in the middle of a field. And as I rotate, you can see it's got the whole field 360 degrees. I can look at it from any angle and I'll be getting different backgrounds. It's not static background. It actually moves with the model. So you can keep playing around until you find something you like. And obviously go from there. What you can actually do, as I'll show you in a minute, you can download new environments from the internet and choose those. So here's a different one. It's a workshop for car bodies, and now it's in the middle of but the scaling is a bit of a mystery, really. You're going to have to experiment a lot to get the scaling right. Obviously, you can't usually fit an industrial shed inside a workshop. It's a doll's house now. But you can experiment with different ones till you get ones that work on a nice scale, give you nice lighting, or you can just turn off the background altogether. So I'm just playing a bit here to show you what it can do. Now it's in the great big courtyard of some public square. I don't tend to use the backgrounds because they're never in the right scale, so I just change it back to the solid color, but I've gone for that now. Then you can click at the top in canvas render, and that's what it's doing here, just to test that it's going to look all right. It comes up much brighter, I find, when I hit the render. So it's coming through. Yeah, okay. Either you are or you're unhappy. You keep fiddling till you are happy. But once you are happy, you can move on. What I'm doing now, I've gone for the command called decal at the top, or decal, depending on how you say it, and I've just browsed to the Graitec logo on disk. Now I can pick a surface and it'll put that logo on that part. So it's obviously too big. I've now scale it down with your settings in the dialog box, So you could put your company name on one of the beams or on one of the planks on the decking, whatever, and that's quite nice. If you saw the user day images earlier, then I had lots of them. I just had to put the logo in the bottom left corner of the image. That's all right, but it's nice when it's in the image on the structure, actually part of the image. It looks that much nicer. So I'm now doing the same with the Advanced Steel logo or icon, just to show how that works. So that's using the decal or decal command. Now I've gone for the final render command, and you can choose the resolution you want. I've gone for nice high quality. You can do it locally, or you can use cloud credits. If you say cloud rendering, then instead of doing it on your computer, and your computer is now locked up for the next 5 or 10 minutes, it sends it off to the internet, and the other computers on the internet do the work and send the image back to you. But that does cost cloud credits. I'll tell you about them in a second. But you saw there, it told me in advance that it was going to take 2 credits. And I can either say, no, I'll do it locally, then I'll do it. Once it's finished, you can click on the download command, and you can save that image wherever you want to put it. So I got nice quality. So what you could do is set up 4 or 5 renders from different directions, all in the cloud, send them all off to the cloud. Then you can get on with something else for however long, and you come back later and they're all sitting there waiting for you to download them. You haven't got to have your machine locked up flat out doing these renderings for 20 minutes. They'll all be happening simultaneously on different computers on the internet, on different servers, without cluttering up your time. And you've got a lot more computing power available on the internet. Even if you've got a slow, useless computer, the servers and things will be good computers with fast speed. In my experience from the user day modeling, rendering, it tends to take a minute to 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe for each model. Even huge models, it didn't really take any difference to the time it took to render. So that's the general workflow. Just some review points there, some extras. Like we say, one of the nice things with Fusion is these environments. The environments, if you have it there's ones for like an exhibition hall which has skylights in it. The skylights are where the light sources are, so they act as the light for your model. And if you actually get the right angle and look at the beams and things closely, it's actually the actual skylights are being reflected on your beam. Or if you put it in a car park, you'll actually see the car behind you reflected on your beams. So it actually controls the reflections. You get accurate reflections, not just a little white spot. And you don't need any skill for that. They give you the lighting, they give you the reflections, they give you a full 360-degree wraparound background if you want it without any skill. There's only about 10 or 12 provided with Fusion, and most of those don't have a background. But if you search the internet for Fusion 360 environments free, you will find other places such as this HDR Maps site, which has dozens of them on there. You can download, stick them where you like, and just browse for those when you want to use them and see what you get. Just play games, have fun. You can use decals, decals to put the logos into your image so they're an integral part of the model rather than just slapped on the corner like a sticker later. And you can do the rendering in the cloud. Like I say, if you're doing the rendering in your PC is likely to be working flat out while it's doing that. So you can't really do anything else. And that could take just 1 or 2 minutes, or it might take a bit longer. You have to sit and wait for each one in turn. But if you do rendering cloud, you could set 4 or 5 up and set them all going at once and walk off or do something else, and they'll still be happening. And other machines on the internet do the work for you and give the images back when they're finished. You're always told up front how many credits it will cost, and the credits seem to be based on the resolution of the final image, not the amount of data in the model at all. Because every single one of the ones I did for the user day was 2 credits every time, from just a couple of bits of steel to a huge model. You have to buy credits in advance. They're not free. You can buy cloud credit packs through Graitec or another Autodesk dealer. No matter what size pack you buy, it doesn't seem to get any difference to the price. So they tend to be around 90 pence per credit. So if that took 2 credits, that's £1.80 to get that image done in the internet. Or you can do it on your own machine and wait for it. The third option, which I think gives the highest quality and really pops the most and probably the most fun as well, is another different bit of software called Twinmotion. So Twinmotion, this is a third-party program. It's nothing to do with Graitec or Autodesk. It's made by somebody completely different, but it's very easy to use and produces really, really good quality results. It's actually owned by Epic Games, and it's based on their Unreal engine. Unreal, you may have heard of it if you're a gamer. It's used to power a lot of the video games available. It handles all the graphics for them. You can search the internet or go to the Unreal Engine and look at their site. You can find the Twinmotion, and that costs you for around, the only price I could find was $499 a year. This has other advantages. Apart from being much higher quality, it also has lots of toys you can use to add extra objects to your model, like people and cars and diggers and things like that. It can simulate the weather, so you can have different times of day, moving the sun around. You can have whether it's raining, snowing, or dry and sunny, or windy. And with windy, you can also have it animated and moving. You can record videos through this as well. So let's have a look at the workflow there. Well, once again, as I said several times now, you're going to start by making that AutoCAD render file as we did in the first process. So you make your AutoCAD render file with all the right parts and all the right materials, and you explode it to solids. Using the PowerPack tool is the best option. Then, this is a little hang-up, you need to convert that DWG of solids to get the best results into an FBX file. An FBX, I'm not sure what it stands for, but that's a file commonly used between different renderers. Twinmotion can't read DWGs. It can read a step file, and if you can get a good quality step, you might be able to use that. The PowerPack model to solids function does have the option to do step files now, but it does not yet preserve the layers when you do it to step, so the materials will be lost completely. So I'm currently recommending you do FBX files, and to do that, I find you need Navisworks Manage. A lot of people buying Advanced Steel, you buy Advanced Steel as part of the AEC collection from Autodesk, which means you have Revit, Navisworks Manage, I don't know, other programs as well thrown in, all in the kit, Recap, and so on. Navisworks Manage, if you open the DWG in Navisworks Manage, you can then export as FBX. If you don't have the AEC collection, you'll have to try and look for a different solution for exporting that FBX. But then you can import the FBX into Twinmotion, and it'll immediately look good. Again, you replace the default materials that you bring in with the much higher quality ones from Twinmotion itself. And then if you wish to, you can add the fun stuff like cars and people and whatever. You can choose different weather and different time of day. Now, that makes a big difference to what the finished image looks like. One of the troubles or problems with rendering is it usually looks too crisp and too sharp. It doesn't look realistic because it looks artificial. So actually, by setting the weather to being, I find, you can have it raining or you can have it like it's drying up after a rainstorm. I find that just takes the edge off and just makes it look that little bit nicer, actually. Although in some ways it's less perfect, it actually looks more realistic. And then you have to do this function of setting up different images, different viewpoints, different times of day. And you can set up panoramas and animations if you want to. And then you export them once they're set up. So once again, let's have a look at this in action. So I've got my exploded render file. I'm going to open Navisworks Manage. And I'm going to open my DWG of the exploded render file. There we go. Again, different graphics drivers again, so it looks a bit different anyway. But don't really care what it looks like there. The only thing I'm going to do is go to the export button and choose FBX and save that somewhere. That's all I need Navisworks for, so I can close Navisworks now. And now I'm going to open Twinmotion. Which takes a few moments to load. Here we go. Now, first thing you do is import your model. So import, select your file. This is your FBX file. Important in the options here, you need to say keep the hierarchy for the materials, and you need to say, when there comes this bit, use the imported material. Otherwise, everything will be one color, and you won't be able to easily assign different materials. So here we go. Export the model in. Again, it looks quite nice, or quite good already. I'm just moving around, trying to get a nice viewpoint. All the zooming and moving tools are slightly different in every program, so it'll take a bit of getting used to. There we go, that'll do for working on. Now we have to assign different materials. So go up to the top left, you've got the little arrow, and your accesses your library. So you can choose different categories here. I'm going to choose different ground, so I'm going underground, man-made, and I'll choose something here like a nice muddy field, typical building site, rocky dirt. Or maybe I want, for the concrete beams, I'm going to choose concrete road. If I drag that onto an object, the video gets very jerky here because I'm afraid it does struggle a little bit to record what's happening because it's using a lot of power now. So it's important that this option here is set to replace material. So when I drag one material onto an object, all objects of the same material change. You don't want to change each pane of glass one by one. So if that says replace material, as soon as you drag one bit of glass onto one of the glass pieces, they all change to match. Same with the wood grain. You've got different plastics here which look good for the tank. You can choose different materials. What you can do, if you want a different color, I don't want pale blue, or I want different colors of the steelwork, I can add it to the user library, as you saw there. Right click on the image and say add to library, and then you can edit the colors and add that to the library, and you have a new one. So although it might only come with 2 or 3 colors, you can add more and more of your own. I've now gone under the library on the left. I'm looking at for things like bikes. I've put in the per man, I've put in this dog. And just find the one you like, drag and drop it into the model, and it will appear wherever you want. So there you go, I've dragged in the motorbike now. You can see this little selector thing on the motorbike. You use that to move it around or to rotate it as you wish. A different attempt. I've just changed a few things to get something I'm happy with. I was trying to record it a bit smoother as well. But like I say, Twinmotion does take most of the power, so trying to record the screen as well as using this, it wasn't being able to capture every frame. So I've got the bike in now, and I'm going down to the next section. So the leaf at the bottom. Wow, that suddenly came out. Let's see, just come up a bit. The leaf at the bottom left, you can add in weather. You can choose here, go to weather. You can then have 2 sliders. You can drag it to sun, rain, snow, low wind, heavy wind, cloudy, whatever. You can also turn on water if you want to be in the middle of the ocean. You can come up to the top right where you've got the eyeball, and you'll have the time of day, so you can set it to sunny 9 AM, 2 PM, 3 PM, morning, noon and night. And when you go to night, all the lights take effect. It has all the lighting for any light sources in there. It will have all the shadows and everything really nice. Then you go to this next page here. This looks like a little play button, and that's where you store your images. and then finally go to the last one where you export the images you've stored. It's fairly straightforward, and there are tutorials built in. But once you export the images, this is the sort of quality you can get. Yeah, all right, we've done that now. So a summary then of the Twinmotion rendering. Yeah, it is going to cost you a bit of extra money, but it's the highest quality of all. From the people where I've spoken to, looking at the images, having things like the tree there, having things like the car there, and the man, they may seem gimmicky and silly to start off with, but they really make the image pop. And one of the particular examples gives you a really good sense of scale. I had one in the modelling competition. It was a walkway between two buildings. I thought, okay, it's a walkway. It's going to be like 8 feet square or something, or 10 feet, 12 feet square. When I actually inserted some cars, I found you could drive an articulated lorry up the middle of it. So it's more like 30 feet by 30 feet. So it really gives you that better sense of scale of how much bigger things are, what the size they are, how they relate to the real world. And they just really make the image leap out at you and pop. It's just more than having that bland, static, plasticky looking image. So putting those in really do work, and you can change the scale and change the season. So if it was autumn, those leaves would go golden, or they'd drop off the tree and you have a tree with no leaves on. It's really clever stuff. You can edit the materials that are in there. So once I've put one color of paint on the beam, if I don't want it to be red, I could save to my library. I could change the color and to a blue or green or silver and save it again. So I'd build up a range of different color paints, but all the hard work of making it look like paint or look like plastic or look like metal has been done. All I'm doing is changing the color. So you can add your own favorites to use a library and build up a larger library. And changing the weather and the time of day makes a huge difference. The shadows will move around. Like I say, the season will change, so the leaves tree can drop its leaves. If you put it snowing, you even get snow settling on your structure and on the cars and on everything else. If you make it rain, it will have puddles and things, and it just puts that sheen on things just to make it look less than perfect and look more realistic. A real extra perk, if you like, from Twinmotion is you can actually create what they call panoramas. So that would be an image that you could rotate 360, like the estate agents do with some of their properties. You can do videos. You can have things animated in the video. So I've put in, I'm going to show you an example. I've put the cars in driving by, and I've put the leaves blowing in the wind and so on. The people are animated. And you can also do other things with it. So it's got a lot of extra tools. If you really want to wow someone with your model, these can be really impressive. So this is a model I've made before. You probably recognize the model. It's made from advanced steel. This is the architectural metalwork day with these stairs and railings. I've actually also modeled the building with the windows. That was modeled in advanced steel as concrete. So I had the buildings there. Everything else you see, the cars, the lampposts, the plants, everything else comes from Twinmotion. When you watch this video in a second, notice how the rain splashes on the glass railing, and see how the leaves and the things are blowing in the wind, as well as the obvious movements. All the furniture inside came from Twinmotion. This takes longer to set this up, to work this out and to put in all the right things and get some good quality. It took me about half a day of playing about and messing around, but this was the first time I'd ever done it. So I didn't think that was too bad for the first time. If I wanted to do something similar again, it wouldn't take so long. But a walkthrough or video like that can really make something pop and impress people with your structures. So that's some various options there for making your renderings from your advanced steel models. So quickly review that. We've got 4 different quality levels we can achieve using 3 different applications. First of all, you've got your screenshot from a decent model template in AutoCAD. Then you can improve that by using the full rendering tools in AutoCAD. You might find it easier if you struggle with those, or if you don't like those, you can find it nice to go to Fusion, which has other tools like environments and decals. And also, if you really want to go push the boat out and you want to have a bit of fun with it, then I feel Twinmotion is an excellent choice. With very little skill needed, you can achieve really good results that really pop and sing. All three of those are using this at the first start point in the workflow. So everything's set up in the program you're most familiar with. You use AutoCAD in the form of Advanced Steel, use it every day. So most of the setup is creating that render template you've done once, but you drop your model into the render template, tweak a few textures, and explode it. Once you've got that model template set up, that's probably going to take you 5, 10, 15 minutes tops. And then you play with Fusion or Twinmotion if you want to, which will add 10 minutes. I probably did each of the images in the user day once I got the workflow down to the line. I could probably do 2 images in AutoCAD, 2 or 3 in Fusion, and 2 or 3 in Twinmotion. From any given model, I could probably do all those, or 3 sets of images in 25 minutes from start to finish per model. So it's once you get the swing of it, most of the time is spent working out the workflow, but getting that render template to begin with. Once that's done that once, you don't have to do that again. So you do the work in AutoCAD, you export it if you need to into another application, you upgrade the materials, add any extra things you like, and then do the renderings. If you can't remember all that, you can take a screenshot of this. This is the workflows you need. Okay, so that's all I've got to say. We are finished now. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope you found it interesting.